Woodson, who started what we now celebrate as Black History Month. It is a day that is one I appreciate deeply and greatly celebrate, and I believe it's worthy of our celebration. And for those who are now joining us, I've switched this on, I'm putting this on Facebook Live. We're right now here on Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. It's 8 o'clock in the morning in the Central Time Zone. It's just past 9 o'clock, and we're live from Mutare, Zimbabwe. And we're talking about right now, just getting into a conversation about Black History Month and whether or not it's a celebration that's worthy of our time and energy, because there are so many people who feel as if our history has been relegated to 1 month, and for that reason we shouldn't celebrate it. And so my thought and opinion on that is that that's a clear sign that we don't know our history, that we don't know how the celebration started. And it's not just in that area, there are other areas where we do condemnations and rejections because we don't know the history. There are some folk who reject the Black church, who are highly critical of it, especially in times like these when there's so many ministers who are under the scrutiny of public opinion. They are themselves accused of doing some really evil or maybe to some degree wicked things, and so some people take that and do a broad stroke across all Black churches and accuse them all of these kinds of negative things. Well, the majority of churches are doing positive things, and many of them are doing wonderful things in the Black community. And I still argue that there's no institution in America that is in the best position to uplift, empower, and restore Black people to a level of political power, economic strength, because we've been declining over the last 50 years. We've been declining in our health, we've been declining in maintaining our family structures, and so many other ways we've been declining. And I'm saying that no institution is in a better position to restore us or even make us better than we were than the Black church. And if I'm wrong about that, somebody correct me. I certainly don't want to be wrong. But don't call in and just, make a lot of accusations against the Black church. Answer the question. What institution is better than the Black church? If there's another one, let me know. Let us know, and let's share that. But the point I'm trying to make is, just the same as there are those who seem to not understand history will criticize Black History Month, those who would criticize the Black church. And there are those who would, of course, for a long time in our history, there are those who criticized Africa, and there's still some who do, because they say that, well, the Africans just sold us into slavery. Well, it wasn't that simple. You don't know about the millions of African lives that were lost fighting to keep us from being taken into slavery. And it seems like that part of the history gets lost. Or the fact that when we talk about Christianity, people say it's the white man's religion. Well, no, that's not true. The savior of the religion is a Black man. And the first 300 years of Christianity were dominated, controlled by Black theologians, Black teachers, Black apostles, whatever you want to say. And it wasn't until after that, after things had already been established, it had nothing to do with no Council of Nicaea. I don't know where that lied. Well, I do know where it came from, but I don't know why we keep propagating lies about what happened at the Council of Nicaea without ever asking the question, well, where's the evidence? And so my point is, there are a lot of things that we seem to embrace as a Black people, and some of us say we're Afrocentric, but yet we fail to go and do our own research and find out the truth so that we can tell our people the truth and we can do the right things. Now, I'm hoping that y'all are hearing what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing anybody by name intentionally. I want you know the names, but I want you to be an independent thinker. I don't want you to even accept what Anyike is saying just because I'm saying it. I want you to really take the time to go and look and see, well, is Anyike right? Is it true that the earlier part of Christianity was controlled by Black folk? Is it true that the people of the Bible are Black? Is it true that what was earlier called Negro History Week, and we now call Black History Month, is a celebration that was started by the black community led by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in the mid 1920s, and became what it is today. I am so glad we celebrate Black History Month, and you can call it. Some people have given it new names, African History Month or whatever names come up. That's fine. But the point is celebrate. Is my opinion. Now, I could say some more. I'm gonna stop real quick. Brother Muhammad, do we have anybody online with us?
All right, telephone number 205-477-5552, Dr. DJ. And yeah, some do come. And Professor Matthew Pringham, who will be on tomorrow on this African Heritage Day. How do you feel about that, African Heritage Day, my brother?
I think that's good. In fact, I like that because it expands the concept from the use of that term black to one that I think embraces us all. The only problem is so many of us don't embrace being called Africans. And some people will hear that and assume it only means the continent of Africa and does not include the diaspora. For me, when I hear Africa or Africans, I automatically think continental and diasporic. But I'm not sure if everybody thinks that way. And so it might be problematic in that sense. And black is a term that everybody embraces. Even here on the continent, there's a real popular design, a hat design that people wear. I mean, they wear it all over the country. What does it say? Black, and I love black. Black. I can't remember what it says, but it lifts up the ideal of being called black people. In fact, it might say something like that. Black people. I can't remember. But so black might be a more embracing, a broad enough term for more people to embrace it.
We'll go to the phone line, but before we do, let's talk about then G. Woodson and the radio down the background. Most folks out there, Dr. Anyike, are aware that because Woodson wrote more than 1,000 books, and 3 of them were talking as well, including his final report. He showed and preached open on African civilization and theory.
Okay.
That said, let's go to 205-773. 205, you're on, Dr. James. Grand Rising, brothers.
Peace to you.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but you guys are coming in kind of choppy. But yeah, I would, at one point in time, I would have agreed with the brothers that the church would be the best institution to help the people out of the condition that we're in. But as over the years, as we examine the church, we'll see it has the same thing that most of our major cities and towns have, that are predominantly Afro-descendant. It has the Negro gatekeepers at the head of a great majority of the churches, and they do not preach racial theology. So I would disagree about the church being that institution. And now it could if you didn't have those Negro leaders and gatekeepers there, but other than that, it's not the institution. Let's see what that goes. Please mute the phone if you're listening back. Mute the phone. We got a little feedback. Dr. Anyike, back to you, brother.
Let me say up front, I think the brother has some valid points. There certainly are some gatekeepers, and there was another term he used which slips my mind at the moment. There certainly are some gatekeepers in the community, but they may not be keeping the gates that you're thinking about. I know when we use that term, especially in the black community, we often say it to mean that there are some people who are holding back or putting up a barrier for some people to advance to a greater level in some area or areas of black life. And I believe that those people do exist. And there are some people, if you talk about church leaders who are gatekeepers, then you might be talking about that, but you also might be talking about people who feel like they have some type of religious, um, um, authority to um, say who is or who ain't holy. So I think there's kind of more of a gatekeeping about what is righteousness, what is right, who is holy, who is wrong, that kind of thing. And it's a sort of a religious shaming that goes on in some of our churches, probably many of our churches. And my challenge too would be, how do we quantify whether or not it's the majority of churches that are doing those negative things, that are making some folk feel as if they can't advance, or they are working in the best interest of white power structures to make sure that only certain people advance in society, and have access to resources and opportunities. How do we quantify that? I'm not sure how to do that. I most certainly do know that there's some who are like that. And, in the city that I pastored in for over 20 years, in the last church I was at, I was there for 14 years, I certainly observed how there were those who sort of tried to keep a block on, how much I can influence the Indianapolis community. I remember one setting where I was supposed to be on a panel, and the brother in his panel, the brother in his committee that put this event together, very good brother, but there was there were people on the panel, and I have a suspicion of who he was talking about. It was one politician, one is another minister, and another community leader, and these guys were, I would say, probably more well known in the city at that point than I was, but nevertheless, one of them said that he would not be on the panel if Anyike was on the panel. And so I don't think I was on, no, you know what, I think I did end up being on a later panel, but not on the one with that particular person. And so that's kind of a gatekeeping thing, where they say, well, we can't participate in this person's rising in the eyes and minds of our people. And so whether or not the majority of churches do that, I would question that. I do certainly know that they exist. But the circles I run in and the ministers that I fellowship with and did things in cooperation with were deliberation-minded ministers, many of them. And so they embraced, and still embrace some of the things that I spoke about and taught. And a lot of folk would be uncomfortable with some of the language I use. Many of them know that I'm one of the ones who says we got to kill white Jesus. Now that sounds very harsh, kill white Jesus. And what I mean by that is, of course, Jesus was not white. He was clearly black, and there's a lot of historical and other kinds of evidences for that. But this image of white Jesus, which I think is the most important image in white supremacist activities, yet we got to get rid of that mindset, that image. And so yes, I would say that, and I don't hear any of the other black pastors use that language. They'll say something more subtle and soft than I would say. So I hope I'm answering your question. I'm agreeing with you in the sense that there are gatekeepers, but I'm questioning to what degree these gatekeepers exist, and I'm validating or verifying that there are so many pastors all across the country who are certainly community-minded, who are Afrocentric, who love our people, who fight for our people, and so those are the ones we need to support. So let's not, again, paint all churches and all pastors with the same brush, but find those ones who really love our people, and those are the ones we need to embrace and lift up.
All right. So before we go to 773, if Brother K. Moore have a response to that. Brother K. Moore, you have a response before we go to the next call?
Yeah. So I'm not painting with a blanket, because you do have places like the Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
But again, a great majority, and that's due to the fact that, in speaking, from a Dr. Amos Wilson perspective, that psychologically they lead our people into docility. They quell the aspirations of the people. They are the ones who come out and make the people behave or acquiesce to white domination.
Well, let me ask this question just to be clear, because you used the term, you said majority. I just need you to tell me how you justify saying that the majority of churches do that. I just don't see that. And I don't know if you know, I am a pastor. in the United Methodist Church, been a pastor for over 20 some years.
Listen, so I grew up in the church. I ministered in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm I don't but the difference with me is that I don't have a bias because, that's how how I became who I am. The lessons that I learned from being in the church.
But let's not get away from the question I'm asking. The question I'm asking is, how do you justify saying that the majority of churches, black churches, are like this? What's your evidence for that?
Again, look at the theology. Look at the delivery of the theology. It's not in liberation theology.
That's not true.
That's what the whole book is based on.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
Of a people who have been subjugated.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah, in terms of the Bible.
We telling our people to go get the jab. We telling our people to vote Democrat.
That's not, again, that's not true.
Go ahead, bro.
So many of our churches embrace a more conservative viewpoint, and they are silent on who you should vote for, more so than saying go vote for this Democratic candidate. Yes, there are some churches that do that and say that, but I'm not sure even that's the majority. I think most churches are more conservative, and they will either embrace a conservative candidate or they'll be silent. And that's black churches.
And these pastors are worldly, and they are at enmity with God because the world loves them.
All of them?
And when the world loves you, you're at enmity with God.
All of them. Yeah, but you still haven't told me how you make it the majority. How do you say, when you say all of them, or you say in general, even most of them, these are words that I need to.
Where are we leading our people? Where have we led our people? Where are we leading our people?
Well, again, I can't say for every church. I can speak for Anyike, the church that I pastored, and I can speak for many of the other ministers that I know who are certain enough liberation minded.
I'm going to go to the next call.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother, for calling in. Let's go to 773. I think that's my son, Koulibaly. 773, you on.
Hey, Yebo, and hotel to you, Anthony Muhammad,
Hotel.
and hotel to my good brother, Reverend Dr. James Anyike, all the way from Zimbabwe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Asante Sana, my brother, for
Karibu.
coming back home. And I want to just say to you, brother, I've been using your book, African American Holidays, for years. For years, I have used that book when I address our youth and adults, over a variety of programs in high schools, colleges, and so forth. And I really appreciate you doing that. And I want to definitely get the revised
Good.
editions, and I appreciate that you're, revising and keeping it going.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
just like Dr. Karenga's book, Introduction to Black Studies,
Yes.
where he has a chapter on black history, black economics, black social organization, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
He comes out with revisions or new editions of it, and so that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me bring us back to the discussion of black history, but first I just say this to our brother K. Moo. I appreciate his point of view on that, but I want to share with him and everybody else Reverend Dr. Al Sampson's concept of the different types of churches. Reverend Sampson says that we have basically four types of preachers. The entertainment preacher or church, where, we know what that is. They're just entertaining people and getting offerings. Then he says you have the containment church. These are those Negro preachers who you see them at press conferences standing behind the mayor or somebody else that ain't doing us right.
Right.
For, little perks, from the government. Then Reverend Sampson said we have the prosperity preachers, the Creflo Dollars and those kind of people, But then he says there's the Liberation Church, and that's the kind of preaching church you got.
Absolutely.
That you've had over the years, and Minister Farrakhan with Mas Mariam, and Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright with Trinity United Church of Christ.
Absolutely.
The brother in D.C., Willie Wilson, Reverend Willie Wilson. Hey,
Right.
we got a great set of liberation-minded churches. So I just wanted to share that with K. Moo and the rest of y'all. Now, regarding the discussion of black history, Brother Anyike, from
It
what I
is
can
not.
tell?
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it, but I'm gonna check and see if it's available online.
Oh man, y'all got to see this film, and you know, it's telling truth. You know, it's like Khalid Muhammad would say, "I'm a lie killer. I'm a Black History hitman." That's what he would say. But this film is definitely a lie killer, and I think Jay-Z has something to do with the production of it, and it has Keith, his brother Keith, who played in Get Out. He's the main character. He's Clarence, and you're gonna love this movie. This film can definitely kill white Jesus, and they have a section in the movie showing you and exposing that whole thing, you know. And the masses will see films, and they can get educated, and that'll help kill the white Jesus. Films like this.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that about the film.
Thank you.
Now, also, relative to the discussion that you were talking about, whether we should call it Black History Month, or as Anthony had mentioned, African Heritage Month, I think it would be a good idea for the various locations where the world African people reside, with their own particular nationalism, to refer or reframe Black History Month to say African, for example, us here in America, African American and African Family History and Heritage Month. We can say, for example, Zimbabwean and African Family History and Heritage Month.
Okay.
We can say African Brazilian and African family. See, the whole thing would be to add that African family, and that's the world contributions and stuff that we need to know of our people worldwide,
Right.
so that it would deal with the particular location and histories that we've developed or in these various locations in terms of the diaspora. You know, even on the continent, they carved it up into those various states, and those particular states have history that they have in that location. But if you put and African Family History and Heritage Month on it, then, you know, we solve that problem. You know, your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I think that there will be, some who would embrace it, some that would find it a little bit more, challenging or complicated in comparison to just simply saying Black History Month. And I think about what would have to happen is something that's similar to what happened in the popularizing of the term African American. I don't know if you know this history, and somebody listening who might be able to remember this sister's name, but in the late 1880s, I'm sorry, 1980s. This is when I was working I used to work at Operation Push with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I was the director of Chicago Push Excel and the national deputy director for Push Excel. And one day, Reverend Jackson came into Push, and he grabbed me and I want to say about 4 or 5 others, or maybe 3 or 4 others, and said he wanted us to go to this meeting with him. Well, it was out at O'Hare Airport, and we were in one of the meeting rooms there, and there was a sister who flew in. She was there on a, when you land one and you got a kind of a wait over for a couple hours before your next flight. Well, we met this sister, and her purpose was to meet with us, or meet with Reverend Jackson, and ask him to get on board with the ideal of, us not using the word Negro to describe ourselves, but to use the term African American. And of course, we also used Black at that time, but she was trying to do this national movement for us to call ourselves African Americans. And so she was going from city to city and went all across the country and met with key influencers. And so Reverend Jackson was one of those who embraced it. So all at the same time, all these different organizations and individuals embraced the term African American, and that's how it became popular. Same with Kwanzaa. Dr. Karenga, yes, he founded it, but the summer before it was put out, he gathered together Black leaders from all over the country, and they all embraced the ideal of Kwanzaa, and then released, energy for it and celebrations for it all at the same time across the country. So what I'm suggesting is what may have to happen for that kind of transition to take place for Black History Month. And see, something like this would have to start with the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. That organization I think can spearhead the changing of a name that's more inclusive, of our African heritage. I think if they did something like that, just the same as they were the ones who popularized the use of Black History for a month rather than a week, something like that I think can work. But I think us individually talking and saying this is what should be, I don't think that would work. It would really have to be sort of a large number, a critical mass of us who embrace it and then sort of release it to the Black community all around the same time.
Let me respond to that, brother. Appreciating what you said, and if I understood it correctly, I would say that Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, beat Jesse Jackson to that long time ago. Malcolm called us Afro Americans, which
Right.
is the same thing as African American. And in fact, his OAAU, Organization of Afro American Unity, didn't just deal with us in America. He was dealing with all the African people in the Western world, in the diaspora, in terms of Afro American. And this actually dovetails beautifully into the Honorable Silas Muhammad and this whole push of the National Reparations Convention, and of course at the United Nations, to refer to the African diaspora as Afro descendants. So maybe we could call it Afro descendant and African Family History Month in terms of the diaspora. So
I can dig it.
anyway, I wanted to also ask you something else before I get off. How do we counter the erase wokeness, that is critical race theory or Black history strategy of the Confederate forces like Governor DeSantis of
Right.
Florida? I'm pretty sure you're familiar
Yes.
with they're trying to, these Confederates in various states are trying to ban books and ban Black history and all of that. So what do you think about that?
I believe we counter it by doing some of the things we used to do. For example, the Black Panthers and other organizations at one point embraced what were called Saturday schools. We didn't leave it just to the public systems across the country to educate our children. We had school on Saturday and sometimes even throughout the week to sort of enhance or counteract, depending on what the need was, what was happening in the public school system. And so they can change what happens in the public schools, but we should influence that too. But regardless of what they do, we should be doing Saturday schools. We should be doing, tutoring sessions on the different disciplines to make sure that those lessons are infused with history and information that's pertinent to us as a people and our future. Because if we just leave it to the educational system, we'll only be prepared to work for them. But if we, impact that or those systems with our own actions, so that includes, embracing Black publishers, and writers who we know are being rejected by the educational system, legislator or some, other organization is going to try to disassociate from the use of that language of that individual, that book. Well, we can promote our own books. There's nothing that says that the family can't buy books, or the church can't buy books, or even community organizations can't buy books. We have got to be intentional about it and consistent. Not only doing it when they're doing things against us, but we have to have a lifelong commitment to making sure that we are training our children, that we are promoting our own history if nobody else does, and that we are doing what we can to advance ourselves or prepare ourselves for whatever comes in the future, economically, politically, health-wise, in the media, whatever the category is, even as it relates to protecting ourselves in our communities. We need to be proactive in all that we do, regardless of what others are doing, so that when they do whatever they do, it won't have as much of an impact.
All right, thank you, Dr. Anyike.
Thank you, my
Look,
brother.
we can't leave this conference without mentioning the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey
Ashe.
and what he and take a minute to talk about the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey as we talk about Africa and African.
I often say that not Dr., but the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey has been the most effective black leader probably in modern world history. And I say that because nobody, I believe, has organized more people. Now, if you talk about African nations, where some key leaders were able to mobilize large peoples, well, that's a different kind of thing because that's within their population. So needless to say, if they helped to defeat colonialist forces and the masses embraced them, then that makes sense that they can organize large numbers. The only problem with it is those large numbers didn't keep them from being assassinated. And of course, even Marcus Garvey's large numbers didn't keep him from being assassinated in the public, you know, in the ways that they used the law, in the ways that they gave misinformation, or were able to run him out of this place and that place and sabotage his work. But what he did, I think, is a model that still can be followed today. I think that, if we have our own media sources, our own transportation sources, we used to have some black hotels and motels across the country. We hardly have any now. We used to have a lot more black grocery stores across the country. We hardly have any now. And so a lot of what we need to do is going back to things that Marcus Garvey taught and did, and embracing those things. They would meet and organize just for a quick weekend. They would get together for a month and talk about black liberation and black empowerment. I don't know of any organizations that are powerful enough to say, hey, take a whole month off from your job or 3 weeks off from your job. Come on over here to New York, or come over here to Chicago, or come over here to Zimbabwe, and we're going to mobilize and organize about our uplift and our empowerment. Do y'all know anybody that can do that?
No, I don't personally. So if anybody out there do, 417-755-52, area code 205. It's a no. Tell us where they can get your books.
My books can be found at populartruth.com. Populartruth.com. And let me say a little bit about my efforts in terms of Popular Truth. The name Popular Truth comes from an interview that Dr. Carter G. Woodson did in, I want to say it was 1927. And he was asked the question, what was the purpose of starting Negro History Week? And he said the purpose, the reason for which he started it, was that he wanted to popularize the truth of the contributions of the Negro to world history. And so when he used that term, popularize the truth, when I read that, it just absolutely captured my imagination, and that's why I named the company Popular Truth Publishing. So if you go to populartruth.com, you'll find the books that I offer. And right now, for those who have not followed me more recently, what I'm doing is mobilizing a major Black love campaign. Now, systematic agapism is the term that I use, systematic agapism. Agapism is a form of selfless love. I believe that the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is selfishness. And when you look at anything that's done to harm Black people, whether it's done by Black politicians, Black ministers, Black entertainers, whoever it is, you will find at the root of it selfishness of some form. And so a systematic agapism seeks to, give us more sincere motives for the things that we do, but also we need to be healed from the ways in which we've been harmed. We've been hated and mistreated in certain ways as a people. And so now we have to be loved and healed in a certain way. So when you look at the website, you'll see several books there. One is called Black Love, another one is called The Strength to Love, and another one is called The Faith to Love and Black Love. And then the other one, more recent, is One Love. And these are all efforts to help Black folk heal and restore in our areas of relationship, whether it's intimate relationships, family relationships, community relationships, whatever. We need to come together on similar language and means by which we are communicating so that we can heal. There's similar reasons for why I wrote African American holidays, so that we can have uniformity in how we celebrate these different holidays. So we all on the same page, celebrating in the same or similar ways, then there's a level of unity there that we can build on. And so with systematic agapism, if we are using the same language to describe our shared values, how we talk to one another, how we listen to one another, how we respect the elder of us or the younger, you know, all those kinds of things. If we are working from the same playbook of values, hey, and then we can make something happen. And so yes, populartruth.com, www.populartruth.com if you want to order any of those books. And let me also say the work that I'm doing here in Africa, I'm working on a book, it's called the Kitabu Cha Imani, the Book of Faith. This is an Afrocentric version of the Bible. And so I'm still working through it. I'm in the book of Joshua, and I'm working hard to literally finish it this year. I've had a lot of challenges and setbacks, but what I decided to do 3 weeks ago, I published the first 5 books. The first 5 books of the Bible are called the Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So I've published that. You can order that right now if you go to my website, and it's called From Genesis to the Jordan. From Genesis to the Jordan. And it is an Afrocentric version of those first 5 books of the Bible to give you a good opportunity to look at what I'm doing, see if I'm, doing something that would be a benefit to our people and to, Christianity and, biblical studies on the whole. So you'll find all that on the website.
All right, I went to Palm Beach and talked to my elder, Carl, Brother Carl. How are you, bro?
Walaikum salam, and I wanted to make a comment. When we talk about people that have had the ability to expand their breastplate and reach across the water, I always remind people to remember in the back of the Muhammad speak, it was always a hand reaching across the water, and it was always when Mr. Farrakhan. I don't know of another representative from America that has had the exposure that Mr. Farrakhan has had internationally,
Right.
not only in Africa but in all of the many other countries. And because we are so fearful of his leadership and the reputation of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and others who have been able to stay steadfast in this movement here in America, I think we got fear in our heart. And when I think about the educational proponent, we've already had the law. We've marched, we picketed, we've already passed all of those stations. And right now here in the state of Florida, our law says African and African American history to be infused in all grade levels and all subject matter. Now, I would say that to our family members, but because of our level of consciousness, it goes over our head. And what we're talking about is educating the whole state of Florida, but we don't have the money or the publicity like Black Lives Matter or some other entity that other people are investing in. I think it's time for us to really, if we're gonna, because I always ask everybody, what you doing? You know Carter G. Wilson, right? And if you find, if you ask our family members, most of us don't know Carter, and we never heard of him. You know what I mean? I'm like Scout Superintendent. He don't even know the man. So I think we need to go back to basics, go back to the week, go back to the day, and start from a starting point where you can get some traction. Because I think when you try to start 365 days and you don't know yourself, you create a problem for everybody.
Right.
Because you're not stable and you're just running your mouth. And we find a lot of that kind of activity because people have been taking out suffering and marketing it in every way human imaginable. And I just think this year, 2024, we should have been mature to the point where we could look at ourselves and stop trying to mix us with everything. Carter was very pointed. The messenger was very pointed. Everybody's been very pointed, but we always want to change the dialogue and add our stuff to it, and then we dilute, like what Malcolm said. We used to have black coffee, now we done added cream, and we done added so much that it used to wake us up, now to put us to sleep. And I just think it's time for us to focus on ourselves and those who have focused on us, and it's easy to find out who they are, because all you got to do is just find out who they tried to murder and why they tried to murder them, and then I think we'll get a grip on some of the things that we're talking about.
Ashe.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Dr. Nijay?
You know, I would just, I have to agree with everything the brother said. I would just emphasize the need for us to on it. Yeah, I believe we need to be a part of organizations that are doing things for our people and working for our uplift. We need to be a part of churches that are doing that. But the thing I think that would be powerful is if we have more individuals. If I, as an individual, make a decision that I'm going to spend my, X amount of my dollars, the certain percentage of my dollars with black-owned business, and I hold to that, not just for a week or for a campaign, but for the rest of my life. If I, as a person, determine that I'm going to mentor younger brothers and sisters with whatever wisdom and knowledge I might have to share, or even my mistakes, I'll tell them my stories, and they can use them as cautionary tales. But I make that commitment for the rest of my life that whatever young people I can influence for the better, I'm going to do that. Whatever skills I can help them to attain, I'm going to give. Whatever money I can give to organizations, individuals for the uplift of our people, I'm going to give it. I'm just saying, on an individual level, if more of us would do what we can for as long as we can, as often as we can, in as many ways as we can, for the uplift of our people, that in itself would have a powerful impact. If men in a particular community decide on an individual basis, I'm going to be a protector of the children and the people on my block. And many people have been critical of me because I believe black folk ought to be armed. I believe we ought to have weapons. We just need to know how to use them. And we have to have the right mindset to use them. We need to be trained, some of us, in how to use them so that we don't shoot ourselves or our own children. But we need to find those ways to protect our people, and we don't have to all get together to do that. We can do that as individuals, and there's so many other things we can do as individuals that if more individuals do it, we can have a powerful impact on our communities and our people.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Take the last couple minutes and to talk about. We got to get our children African mind back, brother. With what they want to call social media platforms, they got them there, brother.
Right.
We had Living Black with Brother Evie. We got Evie Toomey with Dr. Gambon. We got Our Black Truth with Brother Thompson. We got the social platforms, but they haven't really captured the attention of youth. And with the rapidness that's going on with social media, brother, how do we get the children back from this matrix?
One family at a time. It starts with the parents. It starts with the mamas and the daddies. And that's why I said that the church is in a better position, because if the church is doing what it's supposed to be doing, if it's feeding folk, if it's healing folk, if it's teaching folk, if it's being a presence in the community and not just waiting for folk to come to the doors of the church, but they going out and doing their thing in a positive way, then it will attract families. It will attract parents. And I know this is true all across the country. There were white churches who were given money by the government to do programs in their churches for black children, and this happened in cities all across the black community in America. And so you often had these communities where these white churches, they send a bus into the community, and the parent would just, some parents who knew would just go ahead and let them get on the bus, and some their children were following other children who were getting on the bus to go to that white church to be indoctrinated or influenced, however it was. But they were consistent about it. And what if we were consistent to that degree? Why do we have to always wait for a grant to do the right thing for our people? We shouldn't have to. And so I'm saying that there are good black churches who are doing the right thing, who are providing services, providing programs, and we need to embrace them as a power play. Certainly we need to do it as a spiritual power play for our own individual lives, but we also need to do it for our people. And so, and let me say this last thing. I'm over here in Zimbabwe. I am loving it. This is my, I think, 14th or 15th month in Zimbabwe, so I've been here a little bit more than a year. And I am just loving it. I'm learning what it means to be Afrocentric. I thought I knew, but trust me, I'm learning what it means to be Afrocentric, what it means to be an African the richness of the values and the culture, and it's struggling too. It's trying to figure out how to hold on to its young people in some ways. It's just that they are not as heavily influenced by this negative music as our children are in the community. So the bottom line to the answer I'm giving is that that's something that's going to have to take place parent by parent, family by family. If the elders in the family agree that we're going to make sure we influence how our young people view music or entertainment or the internet, or even to some degree at certain ages, monitor and restrict what they have access to until we know they got a firm grip on what's in the best interest of our people. You know, if we as individuals and families do that, I think that's the best start.
All right, excellent presentation, Dr. Anyike. We've reached the top of the hour. Take about 30 seconds to close us out, Elder.
I really strongly encourage you all to check me out, of course, on Facebook, James C. Anyike. That's Anyike. Anyike. Check me out there and see some of the things I'm engaged in. You can order the Kitabu, the Afrocentric Bible, in advance. I'm still pressing on for it to be done by the end of spring. But again, it's getting close to that time, and I'm rushing. Well, not rushing, but working. Certainly, I need to publish books. If you have books that you need published, that's really how I make my income. If you want to give a contribution, we have what is called the $10 team. Those people who give at least $10 a month to support what I'm doing here in Africa and for our people, you know, around the world. I want to encourage you to support. My phone number in America is 317-759-7458. 317-759-7458. And here in Zimbabwe is plus 263-78-693-4542. Connect, you know, go to the Popular Truth website and support, you know, what I'm trying to do. And let's keep uplifting one another, brothers and sisters. And thank you, Brother Anthony, Brother Muhammad, for this time.
All right,
Peace, Karibu.
You gotta get out of here. Stop.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, thanks so much for joining us on Facebook Live. Again, this was my second time being blessed to host the Sankofa Revolutionary Radio program. Of course, in Central Time, that was 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It'll be back on today, the recording of this. And let me see, I think I have the time here. At noon Central Time and 6 p.m. So this show will again air at noon and at 6 p.m. Not the Facebook post. The Facebook post will just be on there, so you can see that. But I thank you for sharing this time. But I see there are a couple of comments. One brother asked me what my name is, and a brother says, thank you, Brother Sean in Chicago, originally from Zimbabwe. And for all of you who have shared some time with me this morning and viewing this time together, or those of you who see it later, if you find that there's anything meaningful about it, I encourage you to share it, to like it, even to love it. But let's continue to share these positive messages so that we can do the things that we need to do to uplift our people. And again, some of y'all good church folk, I know, you know, you raise questions about what does this have to do with the kingdom of God? What does this have to do with Yeshua Jesus being lifted up as Savior? And the thing is, this is the ministry the Most High called me to. Yeah, because there's so many of us that hate ourselves. And I found that that's not only true in America. We are so distracted and destroyed. I mean, there's some good things going on in America, wonderful things, but in a lot of ways, our black people are really hurting. And so the work that I've done over the years, the writing and the lecturing and the teaching and the preaching and all I've done was to try to relieve some of that burden, give us a better sense of love, the Most High's love for one another, love for ourselves. And now I'm blessed to be in Africa, and it is blowing my mind because I knew that there may be a need, but my goodness, the need is much greater here than I anticipated. there's so much more that the Most High is already positioning me to do. Even this house that I'm in is just a wonderful spot to do powerful things. It's more than enough space for you to come and visit, and you get on my Facebook page, you'll see that I have options for you to come and visit here in Mutare, visit not Niagara, I'm sorry, Victoria Falls, on the west side of the country, and so many other wonderful things you can experience. You can come here and do a time of retreat. It could be a spiritual retreat. It can be a cultural retreat. And believe me, I will give you some things to do that come out of what I shared earlier about systematic agapism. There's some specific things that you can be trained in that I promise will bless your life. And I promise will be reflective of what it is the Most High wants to do in your life. And so that's the connection. Everything about ministry does not have to be about preaching and Bible studies, and I do those things. But there's so much more that we can do to enhance life. Jesus did simple things. He gave folk the ability to see, right? The ability to walk, helped other people, fed folk, right? 5,000 in one case and 4,000 in another. So, I mean, there's different physical, social things that we can do, and that's the ministry the Most High has called me to. Now, last thing I want to say, I'm thankful for those of you who allow me to publish your book. That is so important. I just did finishing up one book for Sister Elias Reeves in Indianapolis. She's so excited, and her book should be going. We got to do a couple of more editing things on it, but her book should be going live on Amazon, hopefully by Monday, if not sooner. And you can actually order it now on the Popular Truth website, and we should have the printed versions. The Amazon version you can do as print on demand, of course, but she's going to also have her own copies that you can buy from her directly, hopefully sometime next week. So that's what we got going on. Got a couple of other authors we just finished, and after I do Sister Reeves' book, I got a couple of authors who are still doing some writing, but they're not ready. So if you're ready, please reach out to me. I have two major options. One is just to get your book on Amazon, which is $2.95. I'll do the editing and the layout and input it in Amazon for you. The other is to do what I just mentioned, the Amazon stuff, but also you'll be able to have 125 copies of your book. It will be edited, the cover art, all the kinds of things. And I shouldn't use the term edited because that's a little bit loose. It's more proofreading than it is editing. So all those things to make your book one that's quality and will be received by the audience, we're willing to do that. So again, let me encourage you to reach out if you have a book that you need published right now, or if you want to just give some money to support what I'm doing. Believe me, we can use it desperately.